yesterday, which is March 11th, we will be having a speaker. One of our own members, Robert Barnett, he's written a book called 8 Schools, Campus and Culture, and he's also going to have this booklet that he's just worked on sale. It's called Branford Schools from ABC to STEM. That's going to be Wednesday, March 11th at 7 p.m., but that will be at the Willoughby Wallace Library in Stony Creek. And as Matt said, we have membership brochures, so please help yourself.
I'm on. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight on a windy, cold evening. My name is John Perzan. I'm on the board of the Stony Creek Museum, which is a co-sponsor. This is our first effort with the Historical Society to co-sponsor an event. And we're also delighted that neighboring communities heard about this program and are represented in the audience. I'd like to acknowledge many people's help, but particularly Matt Radolsky, who you just heard from. He was very understated in his role in getting this show on the road. He's our techie. He's the one who helped set up this meeting, so you could all see Aaron's presentation. And Mike Russo is also very helpful in getting publicity around and having the program filmed. It will be on a local cable for those people who couldn't attend tonight. I also wanted to thank Andrea Kenny, who many of you may know, who is a very active player in the community house here. She's the one who helped us set up the room and get it ready for you to attend tonight. Jennifer Walker and Mary Lee Weber of the Stony Creek Museum, and Bob Babcock, who's the president of the museum board, were also instrumental in supporting this event and working on publicity. Jennifer designed this hopefully catching flyer, but I guess not many of you came to see the flyer, but I still think it's a clever design. Okay, the reason we are hosting this workshop is because there are so many properties in Branford and this was originally focused to a Branford audience. Many Branford properties and neighborhoods are listed on the national and state registers. From Stony Creek to the east to Short Beach on the west, with Canoe Brook, Harbor Street, Branford Center, Route 146 in between. These districts include hundreds of houses that are potentially eligible to benefit from one of the state's best kept secrets, the Connecticut Historic Homes Tax Credit Program. What is this program about? What economic incentives for rehabilitation does it offer to homeowners? How do I apply? You will get answers to these questions and many more from Aaron Fink, our program administrator and architectural historian with the State Historic Preservation Office, who has graciously agreed to join us 1 month before the birth of her baby. Please join me in warmly welcoming Aaron Fink, our Pied Piper for Historic Preservation.
One quick note, I saw a couple of people come in right at the end. Make sure you sign in up there and get one of the handouts that went around.
I'm pretty loud. Can I do without the microphone? Is that alright? Okay. I'm Erin Fink. I have been working at the State Historic Preservation Office, which we call the SHPO, for about 3 months now. But prior to that, I worked at the Connecticut Trust for Historic Preservation for about 6 years. And so I'll introduce my former coworker, Mike Farino. He is a circuit rider with the Connecticut Trust for, well, they're now called Preservation Connecticut. I can't get used to it. They changed their name last month. So if you have questions about this program and you need someone to come out and make a site visit, Mike can actually come out to your house and talk about the program and do a walkthrough with you. So his cards are over on the table with mine as well. So I do want to say that I'm still learning, and each house and project is different. and we're still learning about new products that are being used, so I'm learning with you guys a little bit too. So I just wanted to do an overview of what I hope you'll take away from this presentation. And I hope to leave plenty of time for questions at the end. I'm sure you have projects you're working on that you're sort of wondering about.
Aaron, would it be okay if I turn the lights off to get some contrast up there? Okay.
All right, so we'll talk about the difference between a tax credit and a tax credit voucher. How you qualify, what are eligible expenses, what are the standards that we use to evaluate the program, the projects, how the tax credit is calculated, so we'll do some math and look at some case studies to help you understand a little better. And then we'll talk about how to fill out an application and what the timeline will look like for your project. So I think one of the most confusing things about this program is that it's called the Historic Homes Tax Credit Program, when it's really not a tax credit that you're getting. You are getting a tax credit voucher, which is an amount of money that we put aside based on the project costs. And that voucher can only be redeemed by a C corporation. But once you sell it to a C corporation, they write you a check, and you can use that check for whatever you want. You can go to Fiji if you want with that money, or you can put it back into your house like a lot of people do. So you can either find a C corporation on your own, there's tax credit brokers that help you, or the State Historic Preservation Office has a arrangement with Eversource Energy where they will buy the tax credit voucher at 100% and they will write you a check for the amount of the voucher. So how to qualify. So I think when I got this position, everyone wanted to know how to get free money, but you have to be listed on the state or the National Register of Historic Places, and you can either be listed individually or as a contributing resource in a district. So I put up here one of the districts in Branford. So if you're included in this red area, in these red areas, you would be eligible for this program. Fortunately, the State Historic Preservation Office digitized their records for the 4 coastal counties. So if you live in one of those, you can go on a giant Excel sheet and see if your property is listed. If you live, yeah.
I just wanted to say that that Excel sheet has been deposited at both the Blackstone Library and Willoughby Wallace Library for records.
Perfect.
So you have to talk to the reference librarian at either of those libraries, and they will give you some assistance in finding out whether your home is designated.
And it's also on our website, on the SHPO website, so you can download it there. If you don't live in one of the 4 coastal counties, you can call our office and we can check our paper files. They're still working on digitizing the 4 top counties. So in addition to being listed on the state or national register, you also need to be a Connecticut taxpayer. You need to own or have title to your home. And you could also be a nonprofit housing corporation. Is anyone here from a nonprofit housing corporation? All right, so we'll see. The property must be between 1 to 4 units. So if you're buying a giant mill and hoping to rehab it to 30 different units, that's a different program. It has to be your primary residence, so this won't apply to any of your summer houses if you are a Florida taxpayer that's here when the weather's warm. And you have to have a minimum of $15,000 in qualified expenditures. So we can talk about what those are. So this program is designed to help historic homeowners that are protecting and stabilizing their historic properties, that are doing ongoing maintenance and repairing historic materials. So this isn't a program for extensive replacement or new construction. So some of the projects that we will approve, foundation, walls, and when I mean walls, I mean like plaster, not putting up new walls and framing them out with sheetrock. Doors, historic doors, windows, chimneys, roofs, HVAC, electrical wiring, so if you have knob and tube in your house currently and you want to upgrade, as one of the programs we'll cover. And we recently added septic tanks to the program too. So these are just some of the different programs or projects that we'll cover, and we can, if you have other ideas, we can talk about those too. But it's really not for the aesthetic upgrades that, you know, oh, I want stainless steel appliances, or you have the 70s bathroom, those sort of things.
Whatever it is.
What's that? So it's really supposed to be about taking care of your historic house. That's what the credit's designed for, and it's not about getting new appliances and making your home look sparkly clean. So ineligible expenses, permits and fees, architectural design costs, so movable laundry and kitchen appliances, like I mentioned, carpets, new construction, any sort of landscaping or outdoor work. Replacement windows, for the most part, those aren't approved, but if your windows are completely deteriorated, we would allow for wood replacement windows, some composite, but we try to stay away from vinyl and aluminum windows. Removing the siding, spray foam insulation, adding vinyl siding, drywall, laminating plaster ceilings, and permanent paint, which we get a lot of applications, including permanent paint. And so we aren't trying to be negative or say that we don't want you to do things when we don't allow certain projects. It's really that we're trying to give you the best advice because we've seen different products fail. So I just put a picture there of permanent paint failing on one of the projects.
I have a question. What if you replaced your like vinyl siding with wood, you know, with more.
So you went back to wood clapboards?
Yeah, or like the windows or something like that. If you have to replace the windows, you
So
go back.
a lot of projects have taken off the vinyl siding to find the original clapboards underneath and restored them or repaired the rotten clapboards, and that would be covered. Same with windows, if you had the old wooden windows in your basement and you wanted to repair them and put them back in, that would be eligible. Any other questions? So as part of the regulations, we reviewed each project based on a set of standards that are written by the National Park Service, preservationists, and craftspeople. And these standards apply to the exterior and the interior of the home in this program. So we just like to see minimal changes to the characteristics of the building, site, and environment. We try to avoid removing historic fabric. And if anything is really deteriorated, we hope that you will replace it and repair it rather than bringing in something new. So we just want people to remember that historic homes are designed based on function, heating, cooling, lighting, the flow, common dimensions, craftsmanship. So we really want to keep those elements together. So this is where we start doing some of the math. So just a straightforward kind of project. If you have a minimum of $15,000 in qualified rehabilitation expenditures, you're eligible for this program. And the maximum tax credit amount that you can get is $30,000. So I just tried to pick an easy one where there's this historic home in Southbury. The roof quote was for $18,000. So we did a 30% tax credit. The SHPO builds in a 10% contingency in case something comes up. And so the total reservation amount would be $6,204. So that's the voucher amount that you would get, sell to a C corporation, and they would write you a check. And you could use that check to pay for part of the roof or a vacation. So the other thing to know is that you get the lesser of either the reservation or the 30% of the final expenses. So if the roof ended up costing $16,000 instead of $18,000, you would recalculate your tax credit and it would be lower, and you would get that amount. But there is no room to increase the amount of the voucher because once we reserve it, it's sort of set in stone. So I just wanted to do another case study. This is a single family home, and they had several projects that were all historic preservation expenditures. And so that means that everything they applied for was on the list of approved projects. So they have some masonry repairs here, as you can see before and afters. They did some wooden window repairs. They did an HVAC system, and so in total, they spent $67,000, and so you can see how the tax credit is calculated based on that. So these are pretty straightforward. The program is also, can also be used by duplexes, 3-family, 4-family homes, and even condos. So beyond single-family homes, we can look at the 3-family home that we're looking at here. And so each dwelling unit is eligible for up to $30,000 in a tax credit voucher. So the owner of the entire building must be the one to apply for the tax credit. So in this case, there's 3 units, and you can see the cost was $203,000, and so there's the 30% tax credit, and you see that the total reservation amount is $66,000. And so you might be saying, oh, that's more than the $30,000 maximum. But it's okay because there's 3 units. So if you divide the total reservation amount by 3, it's $22,000, so it's less than the $30,000 maximum. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Is the $30,000 for the lifetime of the house, or is that per year? How does that break down?
You can use this program over and over again. So once you close out your project, you can come back in a second, third, fourth time, however many times you want. So John has used the program twice now. And we have a lot of people coming in for their third and fourth projects. So, and you can see how big of a difference they make between, you know, the before and after photos here. So it's really worthwhile. So then there are some more complicated projects where there's projects with multiple components and only a small percentage is preservation related. So we can't calculate the tax credit based on the whole project when there's only a small portion that's preservation. So we will find the tax credit based on 65% of the total preservation related costs. So I just tried to break this down for you too. So if you're doing that kitchen and bathroom renovation where everything is getting upgraded with appliances, but you're also doing a new roof and wooden window restoration, the roof and the windows would qualify as historic preservation expenses. So we would take 65% of that $55,000 to find your tax credit voucher. So this is where I sort of had to be the bearer of bad news. So this was a project that someone came in for, and they thought it would qualify because it was $17,000 in expenditures. But it turns out that a lot of the work wasn't preservation related. So 4,500 was, and 12,500 wasn't. But if you take the 65% of the 4,500, even with the 10% contingency, the total qualified expenditure still isn't $15,000 minimum. So we're trying to make it work, even though your preservation projects are so small, by giving you a tax credit on the whole project. That makes sense? Yes. That makes sense.
Has anybody calculated the threshold?
What's the minimum preservation dollars?
I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Well, it's specific.
Do you have preferred vendors that you work with in terms of getting the estimates for these particular projects?
Nope, it's just whoever you feel comfortable using. We always recommend you get 2 or 3 quotes for this for the same project, so you can make sure that people are being fair, but you can use whoever you want. I'm sorry I fumbled over this part.
Do you have to do the work before you do your voucher
Yes.
and supply a receipt?
Yep. So we'll go on to the application part. Do we want to try talking more about the map, or?
No.
Okay.
Are there any, how does this impact like your federal taxes?
It doesn't.
You don't have to claim anything
No.
at all?
No. You don't even have to claim it as income.
And how old is your project? If I did this last year?
Yep, so, you have to start work after you get an approved part 2, so we can't pay for any work that's already been done. But once you get an approved part 2, you have 5 years to complete the project.
What's the application?
So, we'll just go through how to fill out an application. There's 4 parts, but you don't have to give me all the parts at once. They sort of come in stages. So the part 1 is just to determine that your home is listed on the state or national register. So we'll go through part by part. So this is what the part 1 application looks like. So you'll check if you're listed on the state, national register. You'll put some of your contact information, and then we just want to see pictures of your house, the front, the back, and all of the sides. So there's an example of one in Stony Creek that did a really good job. So the part 1 is very straightforward. So you can submit a part 1 and a part 2 application at the same time if you already know that your property is listed. And so the part 2 application is where you're going to put all the work that's being done. So we have a budget here, so we're just gonna have you put what the rehabilitation work is, the quotes that you have, and then a narrative description of each of the projects that you plan on doing. And for each project, we ask that you have 2 representative photos of the work. So you can see here, she has 2 photos of the roof that she plans on doing, a couple photos of the foundation, and a lot of photos of the trim. So those are some of the projects that she was applying for in her part 2. So you have to make sure that all of this work is signed off by our office before you can start the work. And then you're free to go, and you have 5 years to do the work. After the work is completed, which can take anywhere from a couple months to 5 years, we just need to see that you paid your contractors and that you paid for the work. And so here, we're just going to ask you to put the work that you completed, the amount, and then we'll need to see canceled checks or paid invoices, or even make account statements with the lines highlighted. So we just want to see that the work was paid for. And then after the work after the Part 3 application is approved, you'll submit your Part 4, which is what signs off that you are a state of Connecticut taxpayer, that you will live in the house for 5 years after you complete the work, or that you will transfer the property to someone that will live in the house for 5 years. And so you'll just need to get that notarized. And then the 4-2 application on the right is the one that will sell the voucher so that you can get the check for the amount of work. Yep.
Can you give me an estimate of how long each approval takes?
So the SHPO has 30 days to review each part of the application and respond with questions or signed approval. But like I said, the Part 1 and Part 2 applications can be submitted together, so that can sometimes speed up the process for you too. So you don't have to wait 30 days to your bank and wait another 30 days for the Part 2. And then, so if you're looking at 30 days here, then the work just depends on how long your contractor takes. And then you'll submit the Part 3, that could be another 30 days. And then the Part 4 is the one that takes a little bit longer because that's where you're selling the voucher. So the SHPO coordinates with Eversource Energy, and they'll accept our bundles of tax credit vouchers 4 times a year. So we do it quarterly. So depending on when you submit yours, you might have to wait a bit longer. But once he gets our vouchers, it takes between 1 and 3 months for him to cut the checks to the homeowners. But you will get a check right from Eversource for the amount of the voucher. So your questions?
You mentioned, just quickly, you said live in the house for 5 years or, and that's the
Or you
second.
can, if you're selling the house to someone that will live there for 5 years. So you just have to confirm, that it's the primary residence for 5 years, or that you're conveying the property to a new owner who will occupy the property for 5 years.
How do you document that the new owner would do that, like an affidavit and their intention to do that?
I'm not sure that they really check.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that makes sense, because if somebody's company transfers them across the country, they have to sell.
So it's a good faith kind of thing, yeah.
I know at one time, you could only, Connecticut Preservation would only grant to properties that were in a more urban area. Is that still true or no?
No, that's changed, so it's opened up to anyone.
Anyone in the state, regardless, as long as it meets the qualifications?
Yeah, so it used to be certain census tracts, so like Hartford or, I think it was like more, underdeveloped communities. But now it's the whole state. It also used to be a $25,000 minimum, now it's $15,000. So they're trying to change it to make it more user friendly.
If someone doesn't use Eversource as their utility, is that an issue?
No, so you can find, if you know a C corporation that wants to buy it, that's totally fine. If you want to hire your own tax credit broker to find the corporation, that's fine. But having the voucher as a homeowner doesn't really do much good. You have to find somebody to buy it from you. The good thing about using Eversource is that they'll buy it dollar for dollar, and sometimes corporations won't buy it at 100%. So that was just one of the good arrangements that we found.
Are there any restrictions for rental properties? So if you have to be,
It would just be the owner of the rental properties that would have to apply.
has to live there.
The owner would have to live in at least one unit.
What if we just got approved down in Short Beach and my house, I have 2 houses, one is missing off the historic, one isn't, like, they didn't see it or something.
So you can contact or John, do you want to-
No, if it's within the map boundary
It's within the map, it's
and
just
you're
they,
contributing, you're eligible. So if they screwed up and didn't
You
put
get
you in the
screwed.
inventory,
yeah.
that's not gonna disqualify you. It's it's the map that counts.
Yeah, because it said, when I looked at the list, it said, one building, and there's
Just-
actually 2 buildings.
Just so everybody knows, the National Registry nomination form consists of 2 parts, a physical description of the area or individual building and a significance statement. And part of the description is a very detailed inventory of what's in the district that's being nominated and what's contributing to the historic significance of the building and what isn't. So I've learned there have been, some of these districts have hundreds and hundreds of resources. So consultants are human, they sometimes forget a property, but the Park Service honors whatever is included in the map, within the map, and we can do a technical correction if there's a problem.
But if it's not contributing?
If it's less than 50 years old, then it's usually not contributing unless it's famous, unless there's some exceptional
But it's more than
areas of
50 years.
significance. But this program is for average houses. It's not just a landmark-oriented program, and that's what makes it so important, because it can really affect the character of neighborhoods positively.
And if you have a property that you want to get listed so that you become eligible for this program, you can contact the State Historic Preservation Office, and there's both a state registered coordinator and a national registered coordinator who can help you get your property listed.
Do you know how much time that might add to your process if you have to do that for a second business?
It can take about a year.
Oh,
So, a replacement windows, right, you mentioned wood, maybe something else. Are you in this day and age required to go with a single pane window? Okay. So you're gonna upgrade the window for global warming instead.
Yeah, so that's what we were,
But still stay with the wood window?
yes.
And is there something online that would describe windows that you have, is that,
We have some samples of windows that have been approved,
okay?
and we can send those to you.
Yeah.
So I think there's a couple that Marvin makes, that we could send you.
But it would require some.
just given these most recent questions, is there anything right now that is the definition of things going on? Because if there's districts, right, and then there's random, is there, you know, like the definition of an antique, is it 100 years older, or what would make you think that you have a home that's gonna qualify?
So, for this program, a home that would qualify is one that's on the state or national register already.
Already, but then if you want
So if you're trying to get it listed, it needs to be at least 50 years or older, and there needs to be an area of significance. So maybe the owner was significant, maybe the architect was significant, maybe it tells the story about your community. So you just sort of have to work to find out why your house is significant. But a lot of the projects that are included in this program are part of a district where all of the houses tell a story together. So they've been adding more and more districts. Like I think they just added a whole district in Old Lyme with a lot of the beach houses. So they are getting added.
So you mentioned that septic systems are now, how about connecting to, how about making a three-season house into a four-season?
That I haven't.
Aaron, can you repeat the question, please? I couldn't hear it back
How
there.
about making a three-season house into a four-season house?
So he's talking about how to make a 3-season house into
Okay.
a 4-season house?
So the septic system would need to go underground.
Yeah, I
And that
haven't
is the
seen that
process.
question before, but I think if we're allowing septic systems now, that's one we would
I
consider.
would think so what's the process in finding out if your particular project would apply? Do you only have to put it in dead quote under review, or can you call somebody and ask what's working, what doesn't?
Yeah, so you can call our office, you can call me, or Julie Carmelick, my coworker, has been there for years, and she does the big federal tax credit program too, so she always knows what the National Park Service is allowing, so she can provide more guidance too. So you can run stuff by us if you have an idea.
If you have a house in the historic district, it's not a historic house, does it qualify or not for this program?
If it's in a historic district, if it's contributing, so like John was saying, there's a lot of historic districts that'll have like 200 houses as part of them.
So how do you know which house is contributing?
On the forms themselves, we can check for you too, but on the forms themselves, they'll list all of the addresses and say N or NC, or C or NC, contributing or not contributing, and we can just find your address and find it for you.
What do you mean by contributing?
So it contributes to the context of the district as a whole.
Oh, okay, so it's not a monetary.
Right, yeah, so it helps tell the larger story of that area. Yep.
So maybe as an example, on Harbor Street, there are a lot of Greek revival houses, some federal, and then there are a couple little ranch houses that were built, some were built 55 years ago. They may not be contributing to the district, I would guess.
Right.
Okay.
So we would have to check the form for that to see if they were included or not, and then make a determination from there.
Thank you.
John, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that judgment is subject to the staff. In other words, now, early modern period is considered significant in some cases. So I wouldn't I wouldn't hesitate to talk to the SHPO staff to find out if your ranch house or mid-century modern house doesn't have some significance that has become acknowledged.
Is a 30-second example of that. I was visiting Tempe, Arizona, and there were a bunch of tract houses built after World War II, historic district, because it was almost like a little Lebanon on the cheap, and it's historic because of
If they
that.
were in Connecticut, they'd be eligible for this credit.
Right.
Yeah. It's a very good example.
Wouldn't, some of the older districts was surveyed years and years ago, like decades ago,
Yes.
where if you have a house that wasn't on the survey, because at that point it wasn't 50 years old, might not have been contributing. At this point, it might be considered
Exactly.
contributing.
Some of
Like
the
Sherman was
nominations
just
in
done.
Branford go back to the 80s,
It's,
and their age has increased, and perhaps their significance to the district has become more appreciated. So it's an open question,
Right.
and I would not, I would work with the staff of the state office to clarify each case on an individual basis. I just want to keep the process open.
So that's where the state and national register coordinators come in. They can look at pictures of your house or do a site visit and determine if it would be eligible to be added into the district or into the program.
One of the towns beside Branford had encompassing within this. And you mentioned other shoreline towns.
Yeah.
Could I get an idea as to what other towns are eligible at this time?
Sure, so she's asking if there are other towns with state or national register districts. And I would say that almost every town in Connecticut has a state or national register
They
district.
also qualify not, they don't
Yes.
have to be in Branford.
Nope, no.
Or along the shore.
So yeah, you can go all the way up to Litchfield, Hartford, everywhere, yeah. It's just that the SHPO got funding through the Hurricane Sandy funding, and so they documented all the historic resources on the shoreline first, and now they're going to do the rest of the state. I think there's a question. Rebecca?
Oh, me? Okay. What would you consider appropriate roofing for a 1907 house?
So we will approve like for like, so if you have asphalt shingles on there now, we will pay for asphalt shingles to replace them. But if you have slate, we would hope that you replace it with slate or make replacements of the say tiles.
Would a metal roof qualify, or is that?
Yes,
Okay.
so it's just, we want you to replace what's there. Yeah. Yes, so that's a great question. So, so she asked if it include farms. And so, if your outbuilding is contributing to the home, and you're doing work on the home, you can also do work on your outbuilding. So you can't just do work on your barn, you would have to also have a project going on with your house too.
So what if the work you're doing in the house is non-qualifying? Could you get it through that way? Like you're doing your kitchen, but you have this
Yes.
blacksmith building?
Yeah, so that's where the compromise comes in with the 65%. Yeah.
Well, just to go over the timeline again, from the time you do part one application to the time you get the voucher is at least a minimum of 60 days, more likely 120 days.
Well, it really depends on how long your work takes at your house too. Because once you get the part 2 approval, you're starting your work.
Oh, so you don't get the voucher until the work is complete?
Right.
Okay.
So you have to submit all your receipts first, and then you'll get the voucher.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Any other questions? Yes.
Is it fairly competitive in a calendar year? Like, does it really to get your application in the first and second quarters?
No, so,
I'm sorry, Erin, could you repeat that, please?
Sure, so she's asking how competitive it is I think maybe if the tax credit amount ever runs out, or if it's smart to get your application in the first couple months. We allocate $3 million a year, and the cap's never been hit. But we do get a lot of applications, so that's why we do say the 30-day review period. But I think between 2015 2015 and 2013 and 2017, they hit $5 million, but they've never hit it in 1 year. So you can get your application in whenever you're ready to start your work. Do people have projects in mind that they're here for that want to run by, or you're shaking your head? So they have a 1736 house. Right. Sure, so she has a 1730s house. They're interested in repointing some of the chimneys, making sure that the chimneys work. Also doing a septic tank, and so while they're doing those projects on the house, she's also hoping to make her family on the farm. So all of those would be eligible.
We have not approved,
Yep.
but you know, there's very few outlets in when you upgrade, you can do it for code, right?
Right.
So is that entire upgrade included?
Yes, all that electrical work will be covered.
Could you repeat that, please?
Yep, so he said he has knob and tube and very few outlets, so he needs to redo all that electrical, bring them up to code, and that would be covered. Yeah.
I just want to stress that the really important thing for everyone to remember, and I don't mean to overstate something simple, is that you get the work approved and planned before you do it. Because if you start it and pay for it and then apply, you will disqualify yourself. And it's really important to understand that. And if you have any questions about the nature of the work, call Erin or Julie.
Does that mean have the scope change during the process of the application?
Yeah, so that's a really good point. If you have an approved Part 2 application where all your work's approved, but say the project is taking more than a year or two and it changes, either things are being added or deleted, there's an amendment form on our website, and it's just quick, like why the work is being deleted. It could be based on money, or you no longer need to do that project. And you just submit that to our office and we'll sign off on it. And a lot of times it's just so we can make sure the work still fits the standards and we sort of know what's going on with your project.
But the amount of the reservation can't be increased even if the work is adjusted. That is set usually.
Oh, okay.
Plus 10%.
But you
get
can
the
do a
lesser.
separate project later, after that one's
If you
finished.
finish and close that out, yeah. But an amendment usually pertains to an existing, not a future project. And that's why I wanted to understand.
So, right, so you can't increase the amount of the voucher, you always get the lesser amount.
Right.
But once you close out your Part 3 application, so you've made your amendments, you've paid for all the work, you could go back and do that job later with another application. As soon as you get your Part 3, you can submit another Part 1 and 2 application. So people really use this program over and over again.
Erin, so you can submit a second phase after the Part 1 is approved?
Yep, you don't have to
Even
leave.
if you haven't gotten your voucher for the
Right.
Part 1?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know
Because
that.
we know that the voucher takes a little while to, for Eversource to get. So as long as you have your Part 3, it means that all of your accounting has been approved, so you're ready to go on your next project. Any other project questions?
This may be redundant, but as we were just discussing, it's not within a year's time. It's as soon as you finish, you can go on to the next one as long as you've met the criteria.
Right. And you have 5 years to use to complete the project. So there are people, believe it or not, that finish the project in a year and just totally forget to submit their Part 3. And we can't issue you the voucher if it's after 5 years, even if the work has already been paid for. So you have to stay on top of the whole process. Any other questions?
Aaron, thank you very much.
Yeah.
We have a wonderful resource in Hartford to help us through this.
Thank you for bearing with me on my first presentation.